Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video today we're solving Edexcel Igcse Chemistry Paper 1C. The paper code for this particular paper is 4CHO/4CH1. Today we're solving June 2016 and we're going to solve this entire question paper today. The diagram shows a kettle of boiling water. We can see water droplets in the steam, water vapor and kettle. As the water vapor cools, it turns into droplets of liquid water. The change of state when water vapor changes into liquid water is described as condensation, because condensation is the process of water vapor turning into water droplets. Describe what happens when water vapor cools to form liquid water. Your answer should include the change in energy, arrangement, and movement of particles. So in terms of change in energy, the particles lose kinetic energy and they have less energy when they go from water vapor to water droplets. Change in arrangement, the particles move closer together and they start to pack more closely when they go from water vapor to liquid water. In terms of change in movement, the particles move more slowly and less randomly when they go from water vapor to liquid water. Air is a mixture of gases. The two main gases present are the elements nitrogen and oxygen. Another element that is present in air is, so it says element, so must not be carbon dioxide, cannot be sulfur dioxide. Hydrogen is not present in the atmosphere, so it will be argon. Give the formula of a compound that is found in unpolluted air. So in unpolluted air, we have carbon dioxide and water. Since they want only one formula, so either or. This apparatus in the diagram is used to find the percentage of oxygen in the air. Large pile of copper powder. Gas syringe contains 50 cm3 of air and heat is provided to the large pile of copper powder. A small pile of copper powder and a receiving gas syringe. The large pile of copper powder is heated and the air in the syringe is passed several times over from one gas syringe to the other. The large pile of copper powder turns black, the remaining gas is allowed cool, and its volume is measured. Explain why the large pile of copper turns black. The copper reacts with the oxygen in the air to form copper oxide, which is black in color. Why is the gas allowed to cool before its volume is measured? So the volume of the gas changes with temperature. So hot gas will have a higher volume. To compensate for that, the gas is allowed to cool down to similar room temperature. The small pile of copper powder is then heated and the remaining gas is passed several times over the hot copper. The copper does not turn black. Suggest why the small pile of copper does not turn black. All the oxygen from the air has already reacted with the larger pile. So there is no more oxygen left to react with the smaller pile. In another experiment, the total volume of the air in the apparatus before heating is 150 cm3. At the end of the experiment, the volume of gas remaining is 125 cm3. Use this information to calculate the percentage of oxygen in the sample of air. So to calculate the percentage of oxygen, first of all, we will do 150 minus 125, which will give us the volume of oxygen to be 25 cm3. Then we are going to put the 25 at the top and divide it by 150 times 100, which will give us 16.7%. A student wants to find out if the green coloring in grass is a mixture of dyes. He uses a solvent to dissolve the green coloring from some grass. Then he separates the solution of green coloring from the remaining grass. Which of these methods is used to separate the solution of green coloring from the remaining grass? Since we are separating a particular solution from the debris, which are the grass, then we can use the process of filtration. The student uses a dropping pipette to place a drop of green solution into a piece of chromatography paper and produce chromatogram. The diagram shows his result. You can see the baseline and we can see that there are a total of 4 spots. Add 3 more labels to the diagram to show the solvent, the chromatography paper, the original position of the spot of green solution. Explain how many different dyes are present in the green coloring. The green coloring consists of a mixture of 4 dyes because we can see 4 spots above the baseline in the chromatogram. The diagram shows the electronic configuration of 6 different atoms. You may use the periodic table on page 2 to help you answer the question. Okay. Answer each part by writing one of the letters in the box provided. You can use it once, more than once, or not at all. Give the letter that represents an atom. Okay. So, a noble gas. Here, the noble gas will be the one that has a full outer shell. So, E has a full outer shell that contains 3 protons. V has 3 electrons, so since they're atom, it must contain 3 protons. Of phosphorus. Phosphorus belongs to group 5. The number of proton is 15, so electronic configuration 285. F will be the answer. Of an element in group 4 of the periodic table. Group 4 of the periodic table consists of 4 electrons in the outer shell. So we can see C belongs to group 4. Of an element in period 3 of the periodic table. A period 3 element will contain 3 shells. So 3 shells must be observed. So only F matches it. With a full outer shell of electron. A full outer shell of electron is similar to that of noble gases. So E matches the description. Atoms of A and D combine to form a compound containing covalent bonds. Complete the sentences to describe a covalent bond. A covalent bond is the electrostatic attraction between a pair of bonding electrons and the nuclei of the two atoms. Suggest with reference to electronic configuration the most likely formula of the compound formed between A and D. A belongs to, A has only 1 electron, so it's similar to hydrogen, and D has 6 electrons in the outer shell, so it is similar to oxygen. So it will be definitely just like H2O, it will be A2D. Guys, H2O, I have used it as a reference. H2 is not the answer, but in the exam, you can take a reference like this and find out your formula. A student uses the apparatus to investigate the temperature change that takes place when certain metals are added to dilute sulfuric acid. So we can see the metal, dilute sulfuric acid, the thermometer to take the reading. The student's method use the 5 metals aluminum, copper, iron, magnesium, and zinc. Add the same amount of metal separately to 25 cm3 of acid. In each case, the acid is in excess. Stir the mixture, record the highest temperature reached. Use the diagram of the thermometer in the table to record the highest temperature reached in each experiment. We have to record it nearest to 0.5 degrees Celsius. So for this one, we can see it is 41, 42. The next one is 25. The next one is 29. The next one is 41.46.5. And the next one is 31.5. In each experiment, the initial temperature of the acid is 25 degrees Celsius. Which metal produces the largest temperature rise? The most reactive metal produces the largest temperature rise, so it will be magnesium. Explain the result obtained with copper. In terms of copper, we see that the temperature does not increase. That's because dilute sulfuric acid does not react with copper. The same amount of magnesium is added to 50 cm3 of dilute sulfuric acid. Explain the effect this would have on the temperature change observed. The temperature rise would be less because in this experiment we have a larger volume of the acid. So same amount of energy will be produced as the previous experiment. However, because there is more volume of liquid, it will not increase in temperature as previous. It will have half increase in temperature. This question is about hydrogen and water. Hydrogen is a gas at room temperature. It exists as simple molecules. Draw a dot and cross diagram to show the arrangement of electrons in the hydrogen molecule. Guys, there is a certain rule in getting this particular answer correct. If we show the hydrogen as symbols like this and then we draw the dot and cross in between, then this is correct. However, if some of you have decided to draw the circles like the way I did in the first try, then your shared electron must be within the overlap. Do not, try to put it other than the overlap, like maybe here or here because of the shortage of space in some cases. If you do that, then you may get the number deducted. Explain why hydrogen has a very low boiling point. There are weak forces of attraction between the hydrogen molecules, or we can say hydrogen molecules have weak intermolecular forces. Therefore, very little heat energy or thermal energy is required to overcome these forces. That's why it easily turns into gaseous molecule. It easily changes its state to gaseous. The symbols for the 3 isotopes of hydrogen are hydrogen 1, hydrogen 2, and hydrogen 3. State what is the meaning of the term isotopes. So we will say isotopes are the atoms of the same element with different mass number. Complete the table to show the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in each of the 3 isotopes of hydrogen. So number of protons will be the same because proton number is the identity of an element. The number of neutron for H1 will be 0, H2 will be 1, and H3 will be 2. Number of electrons will be the same as the number of protons because they are neutral atoms. By the way, when we say atoms, it is neutral. Only ions are charged. When hydrogen burns in oxygen, heat energy is transferred to the surrounding. The name given to a reaction in which heat energy is transferred to the surrounding. The type of reaction that transfers heat energy to the surrounding is called exothermic reaction. Write a chemical equation to represent the reaction that takes place when hydrogen burns in oxygen. So our equation will be 2H2 plus O2 producing 2H2O. Describe a chemical test to show the product is water. Chemical test for water involves the use of anhydrous white copper sulfate, copper to sulfate, and when we add water to it, it turns blue. Describe a physical test to show the product is pure water. The physical test for pure water will be boiling point or freezing point. So when we will boil the water, if it boils at 100 degrees Celsius, this means it is pure water. The other method may include freezing it. So if it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, or other method may include measuring the density if the density is 1 gram per cm cube at room temperature. Guys, RTP stands for room temperature and pressure. This question is about the reactions of calcium and some calcium compounds. Calcium reacts with cold water. The equation for the reaction is calcium reacting with water to produce calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. State 2 observations that are made when calcium reacts with water. Calcium is a solid. It disappears when it reacts with water. We will see bubbles of hydrogen forming. So we can either say bubbles of hydrogen or bubbles forming because it is observation, or we can say effervescence or fizzing. Since the reaction produces calcium hydroxide, so we can also say white solid is formed because calcium hydroxide is partially soluble. And other observation will include calcium moves up and down as it reacts. And the final observation that we can state as well is that the water gets warm or the solution gets warm. Explain an possible value for the pH of the solution that is formed. Calcium hydroxide is an alkaline solution, so the pH will be greater than 7. Example, pH 12 or pH 11, like that. pH 12 or pH 11 is due to the presence of the hydroxide ion. The diagram shows some reaction involving calcium compounds. Identify solid X, solution Y, and solid Z. Calcium carbonate, when heated, turns into solid X and produces carbon dioxide. With liquid water, it then produces calcium hydroxide. The solid X is definitely calcium oxide then. Then, if we add it to dilute hydrochloric acid, it produces a solution Y. So definitely this should be calcium chloride. When calcium hydroxide is bubbled with carbon dioxide, it turns into solid Z, which is calcium carbonate back again. The apparatus in the diagram is used to heat a sample of hydrated copper to sulfate, CuSO4.5H2O. The equation for the reaction that takes place, CuSO4.5H2O, CuSO4 and 5 water as a liquid is produced when hydrated copper sulfate is heated. Draw an arrow on the diagram to show where the heat is applied. So we must apply the heat here. What is the purpose of the ice? The ice is there to condense the water vapor that is produced. Calculate the maximum mass of water that could be collected when a sample of hydrated copper to sulfate of mass 2.5 gram is heated. So to do this, we will first of all calculate the number of moles of CuSO4.5H2O. So to do that, we will divide the 2.5 gram with the MR of copper sulfate.5H2O, which is 250. Then we're going to find out the number of moles of water. The number of moles of water will be 5 times the number of moles of hydrated copper sulfate. So we will then find the number of moles of water by multiplying with the number of moles of CuSO4.5H2O, which is 0.01 times 5. The answer will be 0.05. Then we will find out the mass of water. Since the MR of water is 18, so the mass of water will be 0.05 moles multiplied by 18 equals to 0.9 grams. A student investigates a reaction of aqueous sodium hydroxide with two different aqueous solutions of hydrochloric acid, solution X and solution Y. She carried out two experiments. Experiment number 1. Using a measuring cylinder, she pours 20 cm cube of aqueous sodium hydroxide into a conical flask and records its temperature. Then using a burette, she adds 5 cm cube solution of X to the conical flask. She stirs the mixture with the thermometer and records the temperature. She adds further 5 cm cube of the volume of the solution X, stirs with the thermometer. She records the temperature. After each addition of solution X, she stops when the total 40 cm cube solution X has been added. She empties the burette, rinses it first with water and then with solution Y, then fills the burette with solution Y and repeats the experiment with solution Y. The table shows results she obtains in experiment 1. In experiment 1, solution X was used and up until 40 cm cube, the temperature went from 23 to 30.6 was the highest temperature reached, and then it decreased to 24 back again. Plot the results for the experiment 1 on the grid. Draw a straight line of best fit through the first 3 points and then a straight line of best fit through the last 6 points. Make sure the two straight lines crosses each other. Use the graph to determine the volume of solution X that will produce the maximum temperature rise when added to 20 cm cube of aqueous sodium hydroxide. To do this, we will do a particular process called extra plotting. The maximum temperature rise, and then we'll draw a straight line to the volume of the solution that made that particular temperature rise. So we can see the volume of the solution will be 13 cm cube approximately. Well guys, that's a little bit lower than 13. We can see it's not touching the 13, so it will be 12.75. Let's use the graph to determine the maximum temperature rise. So to determine the maximum temperature rise, we'll extrapolate and we see a temperature of 33 degrees Celsius. So we started from 23 and we went to 33. So it will be 10 degrees Celsius. Why did the student rinse the burette first with water and then with solution Y before performing the experiment 2? The rinsing with water is to remove or flush out the solution X, and then the student rinsed with solution Y to remove the water and avoid the dilution of the solution of Y. The maximum temperature rise in experiment 2 was less than experiment 1. Suggest a reason why. The solution Y is less concentrated than solution X. So guys, even if the energy change was the same, because there is a greater volume of solution when solution Y is used, that's why the temperature change, the maximum temperature change is not the same as that of the first experiment. This question is about dilute hydrochloric acid. Dilute hydrochloric acid reacts with many metals. A student observed the reaction of dilute hydrochloric acid with 4 metals P, Q, R, S. She uses the same amount of metal in each case. With P, very few bubbles, produces very slowly. Many bubbles, produces very quickly. Many bubbles, produced quickly, and few bubbles, produced slowly. So we can see the most reactive metal will be Q. The second most reactive metal will be R. And then the third most reactive will be S, because it's few bubbles and produced slowly. And P will be the least reactive because it is very few bubbles and it's produced very slowly. Give the name of two products formed when magnesium reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. When magnesium reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid, first of all, it's going to produce a salt. The salt will be magnesium chloride, and it will also produce a gas, which is hydrogen gas. Describe a test to show that dilute hydrochloric acid contains chloride ion. To test for chloride ions or halide ions in general, we have to add aqueous silver nitrate along with nitric acid. And once we do that, a white precipitate will indicate presence of chloride ions in solution. The table shows the displayed formula of 4 hydrocarbons W, X, Y, Z. Name the hydrocarbon W. So hydrocarbon W contains 3 carbons in a row and it is saturated. So it must be propane. X is butane, Y is 2-methylpropane, and Z is propene. Which of the hydrocarbons belong to the same homologous series of compounds? So we can see propane and butane, they are both alkanes. So we will say W and X. And also Y, because Y is a isomer, but it is still an alkane. if the empirical formula of hydrocarbon Z. So hydrocarbon Z consists of 3 carbons and there are a total of 6 hydrogens. So the empirical formula will be CH2. Z is a unsaturated hydrocarbon. Explain the meaning of the term unsaturated. Unsaturated means that there are carbon-carbon double bonds. And the meaning of the term hydrocarbon means that this compound contains only carbon and hydrogen elements. Now, to get the full mark of this particular question, we must add the word only. The substitution reaction between W and bromine is similar to the reaction between methane and bromine. Suggest the displayed formula or a possible product for the reaction between W and bromine. W is a propane, so we will draw the 3 carbons and draw a substituted bromine, and then we will draw the remaining hydrogens. The other diagram that you could have drawn would be having the bromine in a different location. So guys, if you have thought of this particular answer, where you put the bromine here and hydrogen here, this is still correct. State the condition required for this reaction to take place. Halogenation of alkane requires ultraviolet light. Titanium is a metal that can be extracted from its ore in 3-stage process. Titanium ore is converted into titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is then converted to titanium chloride. Titanium chloride is converted into titanium. A titanium ore contains the composition by mass iron, titanium, and oxygen. Show by calculation the empirical formula of the ore FeTiO3. To do an empirical formula, first of all, we are going to divide the percentage with their MR. So once we divide it, we get 0.66 for iron, 0.66 for titanium, and 1.98 for oxygen. Then we're going to do the simplest ratio by using the smallest number, which is 0.66, and divide everyone by it. And then our ratio comes 1:1:3. The equation for the conversion of titanium dioxide into titanium chloride, TiO2 plus 2Cl2 reacted along with carbon produces TiCl4 and carbon dioxide. Explain which element has been oxidized in this reaction. Oxidation is defined as the gain of oxygen. Alright, so since carbon gains oxygen here, so carbon is oxidized, and the reason will be because carbon gains oxygen to form carbon dioxide. In stage 3, titanium chloride vapor is passed through molten magnesium inner atmosphere of argon. The products are allowed to cool to form a solid mixture of titanium and magnesium chloride. This mixture is crushed into powder, then added to water to dissolve the magnesium chloride. Write a chemical equation for the reaction between titanium chloride and magnesium. So the description says that TiCl4 reacts with magnesium to produce titanium metal and produces magnesium chloride. Since there are 4 chlorines, we must produce 2 MgCl2 to balance the chlorine, and 2 magnesium will be used in the process to make 1 titanium. Suggest why this reaction cannot be successfully carried out in an atmosphere of air. The main reason is titanium will react with oxygen in the air, or the magnesium will react with oxygen in the air to produce titanium oxide and magnesium oxide. So to prevent it from happening, and air also contains nitrogen, and both titanium and magnesium are capable of reacting with nitrogen as well. Suggest why the mixture is crushed into powder before it is added to water. Crushing the mixture increases the surface area so that magnesium chloride will easily dissolve in the water. Describe the bonding in titanium metal. Whenever the bonding in metal is asked, the basic question the teacher is asking is actually describe the bonding of metallic bonding. So our answer will be, it is the attraction between the positive ions and the delocalized electron. To make the answer a little bit special, because they asked for titanium, so we added titanium ions. If you do not add the word titanium, you'll still get your full marks. And if you're wondering where is the other mark that the teacher is providing, it is the word attraction that gets the second mark. Explain why titanium conducts electricity. So titanium has delocalized electron which can flow through the structure when voltage is applied. Iodine reacts with chlorine to produce iodine monochloride. Write a chemical equation for this reaction. Iodine is diatomic, chlorine is diatomic, and they produce ICl, so there will be 2 ICl. Iodine monochloride reacts reversibly with chlorine to produce iodine trichloride. You can see the reversible reaction. The reaction mixture is allowed to reach a state of dynamic equilibrium. One feature of a reaction that is in dynamic equilibrium is that both the forward reaction and the backward reaction occur simultaneously. Give 2 other features of reactions in dynamic equilibrium. A reaction that is in dynamic equilibrium will have the rate of forward reaction equals to the rate of backward reaction. For the second point, we can write the concentration of the reactants and the concentration of product remains constant. When the equilibrium mixture is heated, it becomes darker brown in color. Explain whether the backward reaction is exothermic or endothermic. An increase in temperature shifts the equilibrium in the endothermic direction. Since the equilibrium has shifted to the left, so the backward reaction is endothermic. Potassium hydrogen carbonate decomposes on heating. Equation 1, potassium hydrogen carbonate turning into K2O, producing CO2 and H2O. And equation 2, potassium hydrogen carbonate turning into potassium hydroxide and producing CO2 gas. Third equation, potassium hydrogen carbonate turning into K2CO3, producing CO2 and H2O. When 8 grams of potassium hydrogen carbonate is heated until it is fully decomposed, 5.52 grams of solid is formed. Calculate the table by calculating the amount in moles of each solid. So each time we will do the division like this, 8 divided by 100 and then 5.52 divided by 94 divided by 56. So the answers are 0.08, 0.059, 0.099, 0.040. Use the information in the table to explain which equation 1, 2, or 3 represents the decomposition of potassium hydrogen carbonate. So from the information provided in the table, we can see that equation 3 represents the decomposition of potassium hydrogen carbonate because the mole ratio of potassium hydrogen carbonate to potassium carbonate is 2:1, which matches with the equation. Butane is a gas at room temperature and pressure. Complete the equation. The equation for the complete combustion of butane is given. C4H10, 6.5 O2, 4 CO2 and 5 H2 liquid is produced. Butane is used in an experiment to determine the del H of combustion. These are the following apparatus. State the symbol del H represents. Del H represents energy change or enthalpy change. The table shows the results in the experiment. Mass of water heated, the mass of butane that is burned, initial temperature and final temperature of the water. Use the equation to calculate the heat produced when 0.725 gram of butane is burnt in this experiment. So mass in water 200 times 4.2 times rise in temperature will be 43.7 minus 20.0. Guys, because this particular question has 3 marks, it is a good idea to find the temperature rise separately. A student uses the value for part B to calculate del H for combustion of butane. He calculates that it is minus 1580 kilojoule per mole. He has not made mistake in his calculation. A data book value shows minus 28787 kilojoule per mole. What is the significance of the negative sign for the del H? It shows that the reaction is exothermic. The student notices that at the end of the experiment, the bottom of the beaker is covered in black soot. Suggest how the soot is formed. The incomplete combustion of the butane produces carbon. Explain how the formation of the soot may account for the difference between the value of del H from the experiment and the value of del H in the data book. We can see that the heat energy or thermal energy produced is less than expected, or the temperature rise is less than expected. Suggest one other reason why the two del H values are different. Heat energy during the heating process is lost to the air and the surroundings. The diagram shows the apparatus used to investigate the rate of reaction between calcium carbonate and an excess of dilute hydrochloric acid. Lumps of calcium carbonate, dilute hydrochloric acid, and a cotton wool is used so that the acid does not spit out or flicker. The mass of the flask and contents is measured at regular time intervals. The graph shows the result obtained, mass of the flask and content with respect to time. What is the purpose of the cotton wool in the neck of the flask? The cotton wool is there to avoid loss of acid spray and so that only CO2 can escape. Explain why the mass of the flask and the contents decreases with time. Carbon dioxide is a gas which is released and it escapes the apparatus. The experiment is repeated using the same mass of identical calcium carbonate lumps, the same volume of hydrochloric acid, but of a higher concentration. Sketch on the graph the curve that would be produced. Because the acid has higher concentration, the graph will be more steep. Explain using the particle collision theory how the rate of the reaction with an increase in concentration of hydrochloric acid increases. Higher concentration of hydrochloric acid means that there are more number of reactant particles per unit volume, which leads to a greater number of collision between the reactant particles and as a result produces more successful reactions. Per unit time, the rate of reaction increases. Guys, that's all for this particular question paper. Thank you for watching the video. Guys, best of luck for your exam, and question paper like this will be uploaded. We will roughly upload about 20 question paper for paper 1, and we will roughly upload another 20 question paper for paper 2, and also we'll upload question paper for biology in the same manner. Guys, subscribe to the channel so that you can enjoy the videos. All right, and solve with us and let us know in the comment if there was a problem, if there was an issue, and if there is a question that we can improve on. Thank you, guys. See you in the next video. Bye bye.